Hi everyone, and welcome to this video series where we'll be discussing the IPO process. We're going to break this series into 4 segments. The first segment, today's segment, will be discussing an overview of the IPO process and kind of what it takes to get to a successful outcome in an IPO. We'll then transfer into our second segment, which will be discussing the financial statement audit portion of that process and what it takes to get ready for the audits, what it takes to complete them, and kind of all the interplay that goes on there. And then we'll also talk to a client that's been through the process with both us and RoseRyan, us being OUM, and kind of hear his thoughts and war stories and see what we can learn from his experiences. We'll then move into segment 3, which will discuss all the other parts outside of the financial statement audit, and we'll have a banker with us to kind of give his perspective. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with segment 4, life after the IPO. You've done all this work. You've got to that positive outcome of a successful IPO, and now what? How is life different as a public company versus a private one? So those are the 4 segments that we'll be covering. And as I said, we'll start with kind of an overview in this segment. Joining me today, I'm Doug Pilata, by the way, from OUM and Company. Joining me today is Clara Fong, also with OUM, obviously, and we're both assurance partners at OUM. And just by way of a personal background, I've been with OUM for 25 years in the assurance practice and working with public companies that entire time. Clara has been with us for 14 years, and prior to that was with a Big 4 firm for 9 years, and she too has worked with public companies throughout her entire career with extensive experience in IPOs. Also joining us is Dave Robertson, the CEO of RoseRyan. RoseRyan is a financial and accounting consulting firm that we've worked a lot with in the past, and Dave, maybe you want to give a little brief introduction of yourself and RoseRyan.
Great. Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Clara. It's a pleasure to participate in this series of videos. We're excited about it. A little bit about RoseRyan. We've been in business 28 years now, based here in Silicon Valley, and worked with a lot of different clients. We've worked with OUM quite a few times and find it's a good mixture of their audit skills and public company knowledge and what's required there, and our working with the operational side of finance to get it ready for audits and help after the IPO. So we'll talk about that. I've been with RoseRyan about 3 years. Prior to that, worked with Hitachi and HP, tech roles and companies, and have been on a number of public company boards, including chairing 3 different audit committees. So a lot of experience in this space, and I think we have a lot of good information to cover in this series. So Doug and Clara, thanks again for the chance to participate.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dave. So the IPO process is not unlike a lot of facets of life right now, and it's changing due to the pandemic that we're going through right now. And I can recall in prior years spending long hours at the financial printer's office with all the various advisors and stakeholders that are participating in the IPO process, going page by page through the S1 and eating way too many meals that the printer is providing, and kind of just painstakingly going through the S1 and everyone working on their various tasks to complete. But now that we're in a different world, all that's happening virtually, right? So it's video conferencing meetings and emails and phone calls, and which is great. It's just things are changing and you've got to adapt, and so that's what's kind of happening right now. And as I mentioned, there are a lot of different stakeholders involved in the process. And it all kind of starts with company personnel. That's who kind of leads the effort. It's the CEO, the CFO, the key management team, the board, the audit committee, if there is one. Those kind of members set the tone, and then like I said, there's a lot of different stakeholders, right? There's the bankers that are actually underwriting the deal. There's the counsel for the bankers. There's the company's counsel. There's the audit firm. There's the financial and accounting advisors. So a lot of different parties all participating in the process, kind of doing their part to all leading to hopefully the culmination with a successful S1 filing and successful IPO. So to complete a successful IPO, you're going to need at least 2 years of audited financial statements. And this is where, working with a firm like OUM, a smaller firm, can be really be a benefit. And same with working with a firm like RoseRyan, working with consultants, a smaller outfit, we can be much more nimble. So, I'm thinking of an S1 that we just got on file recently, and we got the 2020 audit plus the 2019 uplift to PCOB standards for that audit. We got all that done in approximately 30 days, which I think a larger firm would probably struggle to meet a timeline like that. But we're able to do it. We're able to get on file the week that everybody targeted, and hopefully we're going to have a successful outcome. We're waiting on comments from the SEC as we speak. And because as the audit firm, the last thing we want to be is the one holding up the S1 filing. So we always want to make sure we're out in front of everybody and getting our piece done, so that when the bankers and the attorneys and the other stakeholders are done with their parts of the S1, that the document can be filed and we're not holding up the show. So that's always our goal. And as I said, to get ready for the audit, usually the company doesn't have all the internal resources necessary to perform all the tasks needed from the audit firm. I mean, maybe they do, but more often than not, they don't. They've been operating as a private company, and they're just not used to the rigor of a PCOB audit and maybe what's going to be required from the audit firm. So that's where a firm like RoseRyan can really come in handy and help with a lot of the deliverables. So the audit firm may be asking for some detailed analysis that you're not used to preparing. It could be technical memos on accounting issues or internal control related documentation like narratives or risk control matrices, or even just helping out in different parts of drafting the S1. These are all areas that a company may not have the internal resources to complete, but having outside advisors to help with that process can be a tremendous asset and really help the process move quickly. And so, as I alluded to, the tasks performed by the accounting and finance consultants and the auditors, they're fairly intertwined. A lot of what the auditors need will be prepared by the company / the accounting consultants, and so it's important that those parties work well together and that effectively communicate. I think there's just a lot going on during an IPO process, and so we find it really helpful to have sometimes daily meetings between the stakeholders involved in the audit, just to make sure that things are on task. It doesn't necessarily have to be daily. Sometimes it's a couple times a week or once a week. Depends on how aggressive the timeline is and kind of what stage we're at in the process. But having those frequent meetings, discussing in detail what the audit firm is looking for, and making sure that things are staying on track is really important. And we find it really helpful. We actually prepare a very detailed calendar of kind of all the detailed deliverables that the audit firm will need, and then kind of schedule out when that's going to be provided to the company, when the company is going to complete their review and provide it to the audit firm, then when the audit firm will complete their review and get comments back. And so just having all that laid out in advance kind of really helps to keep everyone on task and keep the process efficient and moving as according to plan. So that's really helpful. Another thing to consider is, in addition to the audited financial statements, you probably are going to need a stub period, a quarterly period reviewed by the audit firm. That's something that we'll touch on in the next segment when we talk in detail about the financial statement audits. Another consideration would be your internal control, and if you need that audited. More likely than not, you're gonna file as an emerging growth company and not need to have your internal control audited, but it's important to be talking to the audit firm and make sure you guys are all on the same page as far as what documentation they're going to want to see in relation to internal controls. And that's something else that having accounting and finance consultants can really help with and make sure that they're efficiently preparing those documents for the audit firm. As I say, more to come on those topics in the next segment. So I mentioned some of the various stakeholders involved in the process. One I haven't mentioned yet is a third-party valuation firm. And if you've been audited before as a private company, you're used to getting what's called as a 409A valuation of your common stock prepared by a third-party valuation firm. During the IPO process, you're going to need to increase the frequency of these valuations. And And you're also going to have to kind of go at those valuations in a different manner so that you're factoring in the probability of this potential IPO. It's kind of commonly referred to as the cheap stock issue, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more in our next segment. But it is something to be aware of, and you'll need to get a valuation firm involved in the process. We recommend 409A evaluations at least quarterly, could be even more often if you're having a lot of option grant, a lot of activity, but usually quarterly is sufficient. But we can, like I said, we'll talk more about that in the next segment. And there are other areas outside of just the 409A evaluation that you're going to potentially need independent valuation firm involved. And that's something that you'll need to work with your audit firm and consulting firm to see where that may be. But so another consideration to think about when you're thinking about the audits and the process in general. In addition to these other stakeholders I mentioned, SEC counsel, having a really good experienced SEC counsel is going to be crucial to the process. They're going to probably drive the S1 drafting process for the most part. They'll kind of handle that with input from other parties, but they're going to drive that process. They're going to work with you on making sure that you have the right governance in place to be a public company, be it setting up the right board committees, putting charters in place. There's a whole host of governance issues that need to be taken care of, depending on which exchange you're listing with. But so they'll work with you on those, and also work with the bankers on the diligence process and the deliverables that they'll need as well. So really important that you're working with experienced SEC counsel that has a handle on the process. And that too is another area where just having effective communication is really important, right? So, frequently having frequent communication with the audit firm and the SEC counsel to make sure that if there's any financial issues, they're being handled properly and they're disclosed properly in the S1. And so that's, like I said, real important that those parties are communicating often and effectively. And so I think that's why you usually see the entire working group getting together on a weekly basis, just everyone on one call. Used to be in one room, now it's in one call, kind of just discussing all the issues and making sure everyone's on the same page as far as where all the deliverables stand. I think all these things that we're talking about, the entire process roughly is a 6 to 12 month process. It could be quicker depending on the circumstances, but I think a good general rule of thumb is probably 6 to 12 months. Usually is what we experience, what we see. So that's kind of an overview of the IPO readiness process and the process in general. Excited to hear more over these next 3 segments about details about the different parts of the process. And thanks for joining us. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please do reach out to myself, Clara Fong, or Dave Roberson at RoseRyan.